Yeah. Well, it's like... Yo.
Welcome to Adventure Sauce, everybody. I'm Benjamin Jenks, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Sean Aiken. Sean is the founder, creator, main face of the oneweekjob.com. And back in 2007, I'll do the brief intro, and then I'll let you take over a little bit, Sean. But
sure.
Back in 2007, Sean graduated from college, didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, so he decided to go on an adventure. And he came up with a project called the 52
One Week Job Project.
The 1 Week Job Project.
Yeah.
And it was to take 52 jobs in 52 weeks and try to figure out what his passion is. Did I miss anything there, Sean?
That's it, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, where did you come up with the idea for this thing?
Yeah, so I guess probably in the shower where most great ideas are born. Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of came out of school, didn't know what I wanted to do for a career, and felt obviously a lot of this pressure and really overwhelmed. Like a lot of us do when we're graduating, trying to decide on what our next career path is. And my dad gave me some advice, and he said, "Sean, it doesn't matter what you do. Whatever it is, just make sure it's something you're passionate about." And so I've been alive nearly 60 years, and I've yet to find something that I'm passionate about. And so that kind of really just made me think about how many people are in that same situation, in the same job for 20, 10, or even 40 years, like my dad, where they're going to work every day and they don't love what they're doing. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I made a promise to myself that I'd find something I was passionate about. And so the idea for the project kind of grew from there. Coming out of school, didn't have a ton of work experience, wanted to get out there and try a whole bunch of different things. And first of all, learn about what I need in a career to be happy first. I think so often we'll focus on the job title, but not actually what goes into the job or whether it would suit our lifestyle or our personality. So the idea was trying out with a bunch of different jobs was like, okay, well, first of all, let me learn about myself for one, go on this journey. And also learn what I need in a career to be happy. And then at the end of the year, put all those pieces together and then see what job comes out of it.
Were you thinking that you'd come up with this dream job?
You know what? It's kind of, in hindsight, it looks like I kind of created, my ideal setting. I mean, even in the actual project, I love to be on the road. I love meeting new people, love trying different things. And so I really just kind of threw myself into it. And then knowing that, sharing my experience through the blog or, through our website, oneweekjob.com, or the book or the film, whatever, really that was inspiring for me as well to hear other people's stories and to hear how it resonated with them.
Mm-hmm. What do you think helped you go from idea from the shower, wherever you had the idea, to conception, to make it an actual reality? Because I think a lot of people have ideas, but they never become reality. So what do you think helped yours be successful?
I think, it's funny because, when I first started telling people about the idea, everybody thought I was crazy, right? You say you're going to work 52 jobs, 52 weeks, and everyone's like, yeah, right, that's not possible. Like many ideas. And that can kind of cause us to start second guessing in ourselves and feeling like, yeah, who am I kidding? And obviously in hindsight, people are looking back, wow, that's such a great idea. I wish I had thought of it. But for me, looking at the really big picture of working 52 jobs, 52 weeks is really overwhelming. I was thinking, okay, well, who's going to hire me knowing that I'm working a job each week, that I'm going to be leaving on Friday? Where am I going to stay when I'm on the road? How am I going to travel from place to place? All my wages were being donated to charity. So I was like, okay, well, how am I going to survive? So that was a little overwhelming thinking about the big picture, but then how I was able to manage it was to just break it down into step by step. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, I'm going to need a website to tell people about my idea and really articulate why I'm doing it and how people can get involved. The second part was like, well, if all my money's going to charity, I'm going to need to have a sponsor. So then it became developing something on the website, some incentive for a sponsor to get on board. And then it's just kind of just a step-by-step process. I think that if we think on the big picture, it gets really overwhelming. So for me, it's all about breaking it up down into smaller, achievable steps, and kind of, then it's only when I look back and realize how far I've come, and otherwise it would just have been, really not possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Actionable steps to take on an idea.
Yeah.
Was there like a big fear that you fought before you were starting this idea? What was your biggest fear?
My biggest fear was that it wouldn't work, really. I was thinking, this is crazy. People are going to think I'm nuts. They're not going to take me seriously. And so that's why I think it was really important to articulate, through the website why I was doing it, and how people could get involved as well. The thing was that with most ideas, if it doesn't work, you can always just try something else. So if I was on the road and I was like, it's not working, I could have always gone home. People think like, wow, you took such a big risk to do this. And the risk really was putting myself out there. And that's it, making myself be vulnerable and opening myself up to these different experiences, to go into a workplace as a yoga instructor, never having stepped foot inside a yoga studio before. And then by Friday being able to stand up and teach a class. So that was the biggest risk, was just kind of me stepping outside of my comfort zone. In terms of everything else, like I said, it doesn't work. You just hop on a plane and you go home.
Yeah. Okay. You also got a lot of media attention from your project, and I'm wondering, let's say, someone else is out on an adventure or they're working on their own project. Are there any actionable tips you could give them for how they could attract the same type of attention?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think it got a lot of media attention because, one, it's a unique idea. Yeah. So, guy does 52 jobs, 52 weeks to find his passion. It's very simplistic, but then at a deeper level, it strikes a chord which resonates with all of us. And this idea of searching for meaning, coming out of school, unsure what we want to do, answering that question, what do I want to do with my life? So I think being able to articulate it in a way that makes it relevant to media. So for example, so you have the unique idea, and then also what makes it timely. So why should they pick up the story? For example, as I was traveling, I found in most cities, then the local media would pick it up because I was doing a job there. So I think the most important thing is, first of all, having a unique idea, but a reason why you're doing it. And so kind of beyond the just, top level stuff.
Well, I think you're also, what I notice about your ideas is something like the idea of finding our passion is something that is, it like hits a lot of people on a core level. And
sure.
Our work is something that, everyone has to do. It's either like the biggest pain in our ass or it's something that we love. And I think you really, the way that you creatively tackled that problem is what drew me in, when I initially saw the project. So,
for sure. Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of a unique way of going about, what everyone talks about on a daily basis. So.
Exactly. You were on the road for an entire year, bouncing all around the USA, Canada. You went to Hawaii. You've mentioned in some other interviews that the biggest challenge for you was like the on the road, always moving. How did you handle those challenges?
I think what just pushed me through is the kind of the momentum from the project. As tiring as it was, I felt like I was working a few different jobs, because during the day I was working the job, and then at home answering emails, trying to figure out my travel logistics as well, thinking of how I'm going to get from place to place, where am I going to stay. But it was such an awesome experience. At the same time, here I was finishing up a week as a park ranger in Hawaii, being like, I'm really exhausted. That was an amazing week. But then I'm like, wow, Monday I get to start as an astronomer in Hawaii. And, the week after I'm going to be a firefighter in Florida. So it just kind of, that momentum pulled me through. But I kind of related it a lot to always building a bridge as you kind of walk, and you're kind of taking a step forward, not knowing where you're going to land, but knowing that it's going to work out okay. And I think when you are on the road for a certain amount of time, you start becoming comfortable with that uncertainty. It's a lot of people, that would prevent them from even stepping out of their comfort zone and going on a journey. But once you kind of get into it a little bit, and you realize that, hey, it's kind of what makes it special, right? And not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the criticism of the project and the idea. I guess like if we let's say someone were to say like not everyone can do what you've done, like have 52 weeks to have 52 jobs, and that for some people it's not a reality, that they can't do what they love. What would you say to that?
I think there's this kind of this idea that it all has to be in our job, right? And so because there is so much focus on our work, we spend, most of our week doing it. We think, okay, well, if it's my passion, then I must try and make it my job, which is not the case, right? Our work is only one means of fulfilling our passion. So for example, I met a lot of people on my journey who weren't working a job they were passionate about, but it allowed them to fulfill their passions outside of work. So for an example, I remember meeting a photographer, right? Photography was her passion. She worked really hard to make that her job. She had a job just to make ends meet, doing her photography on the side. Finally, it was her job. She was getting contract after contract. And to her, it became this grind. She'd look at her her camera on the table and be like, another wedding, another. And so she lost her passion for photography. And so she realized that it can't be her day-to-day job, and is more of an outlet. So she went back to working a job to pay the bills so that she could then express herself through her photography outside of work. So like I say, I feel that it doesn't matter whether it's in our job or outside, but what's most important is that in some aspect of our lives, we give ourselves permission to explore our passions. And really our career is only one means of fulfilling our passion. So if it can't all be in the job, then, look elsewhere. The other thing is that look for different ways that you can fulfill your passion within your job. So for example, if you can't be the rock star, I remember working as a radio DJ, for example. One of the radio DJs I was talking to, Scott, was saying he always aspired to be the musician, but now he's a radio DJ. He calls himself a failed musician, but here he loves his job, right? He works with the same people, he deals with the same industry, and he's able to cultivate his passion for music, right? Music's his passion, and his job as a radio DJ allows him to fulfill that. So, sometimes you have to be a little creative. There's many ways of fulfilling our passion in our job as well.
Okay, nice. What's the most surprising piece of wisdom that you picked up from meeting all these different, the radio DJ or all these people from different walks of life?
I guess, a couple things with that. I mean, time and time I heard from an older generation the importance of developing self-knowledge from a young age, and taking the time to explore. And so not really focusing on what that perfect job for you is, but focusing on yourself and learning more about yourself. So, and the idea being that once you do that, then you learn about, what you need in a career to be happy. So it was kind of like a reverse, so often we'll focus on the job title as opposed to, well, wait a second, why don't I explore what I do for fun and what I'm good at now, and let the job thing work itself out.
Nice.
The other thing was really surprising but makes a lot of sense is just the incredible kindness of people to help you along your way. So I find that if you are trying to achieve something, if you can articulate that, it's incredible how many people will help you along your way. It's so easy to just think, wow, people are so negative, there's so much bad going on in the world, and when you really put yourself out there, and I mean, I was very vulnerable and kind of saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I would not have worked without the help, the kindness of strangers. So sleeping on couches, throughout the year, getting picked up along the side of the road, and hearing other people's story was just such an incredible part of the experience.
Awesome. Yeah, I love hearing stories like that too. I've had similar experiences in my travels. And yeah, when you're out there, you really feel when you need help that somehow help always appears in some way.
Yeah, it's kind of just trusting in the process a little bit.
Yeah. Most interesting person. I'm a hitchhiker. I've done a lot of hitchhiking. Most interesting person to pick you up.
Oh, there's a couple of good guys. Off the top of my head, I don't know. It would be probably more of a longer story. Just real characters, a lot of characters, and that's the one thing I loved about hitchhiking is that you had no idea how it was going to play out, and it was just completely beyond your control. And you're standing there on the side of the road, and you have this sense that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to my destination by the end of the day, but I have no idea how many rides it's going to take and who I'm going to meet along the way. And just the ups and downs of hitchhiking, of the emotional roller coaster in a day is just incredible. You have you're standing there and car after car is passing by, and some people are honking and waving at you, and you're just like, yeah, really, and trying to keep a smile on your face. And then all of a sudden a car stops and you're really stoked and you're driving, and then it's like, okay, we can take you a block up the road. And you're like, back on it again. So, yeah, to me, it's just, really kind of enriched the experience, because it's just, you have no idea what's going to happen and who you're going to meet. No.
And well, so for the viewers too, like the project you went on was a few years ago, and you're working on some cool stuff that kind of came from this project. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so basically now we have started a program where other people can create their own one-week job experience. So last summer we gave a grant to 3 people to go and to create their own like 8-week job experience. So we gave a grant to somebody from Tennessee, another one from Texas, another girl from Toronto, and they went and organized 8 different jobs, and they blogged about the experience from the website. So now what we're looking to do is then create that on a much larger scale. So hopefully nationally, where anybody could then take part in it, whether they're recently graduated or in between semesters, to help them figure out what their passion is. We've also started in Australia, so with a 24-year-old guy from Brisbane, who's currently on week 14 now, and he'll be doing 52 jobs in 52 weeks. And then on another note, actually a whole different demographic, we're starting One Week Job USA in June, and that'll be with a 60-year-old woman. Who's, again, now just kids are out of the house, recently lost her life partner, and kind of faced with this question again of, what do I want to do with my life in this next stage? So.
Well, and for the viewers, Sean and I, before we recorded the call, we're talking a little bit about how this question of finding our passion is something that appeals to people of all ages, not just people coming out of college. And so. Yeah, that's something that I'm keeping learning more and more about. When I first started, I graduated from school, and I thought, I'm the only one here has absolutely no clue what they want to do. And me putting my story out there made me hear from people of all generations in the exact same situation. And I think it is a question that we revisit throughout our life whenever we face a major transition. Whether it's recently laid off or retired, like Linda, the 60-year-old who will be doing One Week Job USA. And I feel like the question gets a little more difficult or more real, more raw, I guess, as you learn more about yourself, and the willingness to be true, to be honest with yourself and asking yourself the tough questions. I think it gets pretty interesting, especially so with Linda. It's going to be so inspiring, I think, for her just to even have the courage to, at age 60, to put herself out there like that is going to be so inspiring for so many other people in their demographic, and also help bridge the gap between generations to say, hey, we're all in this together, trying to figure out, what we want to do with our life. So. Awesome. Let's say I'm watching this right now, and I haven't gone on any crazy adventures, but I want to, and I don't know what I want to do. What could I take action on right now? What would your suggestion that I do after I close this video to help me kind of start living this life kind of that you've had?
Well, I guess if it's in terms of fun and having an idea and pursuing it, or pursuing a job.
Let's say I have no idea what I want, but I do know that I want to have a job that I'm passionate about and live a life I'm passionate about.
Okay. Well, I think first of all, it's about thinking about the things that give you passion. So the question I like to ask is, when are you most happy? And thinking about that, what are you doing? And not just the actual activity, but what about it brings you happiness? Is it, because you're helping somebody else achieve their dreams? Is it because what kind of environment is it in? If there are any types of careers that you think you're interested in, I would conduct informational interviews. This is something that is huge. I think that we can be really intimidated about calling somebody up who's in a job and asking about their career, but the willingness of people to share their story is really incredible. So say you want to be a baker, maybe it's a family friend who's in the baking industry. If not, find somebody in your community who's doing it, call them up and say, hey, look, I'm just out of school, I'm really interested in becoming a baker, but I really have no idea what it's about. Can I ask you some questions? What do you like about your job? What are some of the challenges? What's the lifestyle like? How do you get into that profession? And then from there, maybe you can ask if I can come in and volunteer, 1 day a week, and to learn about what the profession is like. I think so often we'll just choose a job title and maybe go to school for 4 years, drop a boatload of cash to get the piece of paper that says you're certified. but we really have no idea what it actually suits us. So I think putting yourself out there and getting experience is the best that you can do, whether it's through volunteering. Traveling is another way. You learn a lot about yourself that way. But this also helps you develop contacts. You learn about the things that you like to do, things that you don't like to do, and at the same time you become more valuable to the future employer as well as you're developing your skills.
Nice. So someone doesn't need to go get 52 jobs to start pursuing their passion. They could just go talk to someone they're interested in. They
could go down the street and knock on the baker's door, or whoever is doing what they want to do. And I think there's that false impression as well. When we come out of school, we're going to find our perfect job right away, and it's a process. Our first job right out of college is most likely not going to be our dream job. But what I kept hearing is that what's most important is just to get into the workforce. Because once you do that, then you start developing those skills, and you're like, wow, this sucks. Don't want to do that. But you will take aspects from the job that you like, and skills as well, and take that into anything else you're doing as well.
Awesome. That's great advice. Yeah. Future plans for you. I know you're working on the program, and you got a documentary out, which is awesome. If you guys want to watch an interesting documentary, you can download it online. It's a solid watch. I haven't read the book, but you have a book out about the project too. Any other, what do you got lined up for the future? I have a feeling that you're kind of going places.
That's cool. Yeah, man. It's fun to go places. Well, it's interesting. I feel like now how I did at the very beginning of the project, because I see this next step where it's, in different cities across North America, you can create your own experience. We're developing a high school curriculum, so working with a couple of teachers based on the book and the film to help students narrow in on their passion. So there's that. We're starting in different countries, Australia, New Zealand, want to get into Europe and Asia as well. Me personally, I'd love to see this kind of really develop, and I'd really love to get into teaching. It's something that I've found that I'd really enjoy doing. But there's still kind of some work to be done, and kind of setting the foundation of 1 week job, putting the wheels in place so we can go places.
Nice, man. Yeah. Thanks for sitting down and talking to us. Where, let's say, someone also would love to check out what you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah, so oneweekjob.com.
That's the best way?
Is the website. That's the best way. We have a newsletter on there that keeps people up to date on what's going on. So, for example, updates on the program, when that's going to be offered, and when we'll start giving out grants for people to create their own 1 week job experience. All that will be on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. Everybody else, if this is something you're into, check out oneweekjob.com and sign up for the email. It's an email newsletter.
True. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Cool. Thank you, bud.